Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Expressions, the podcast. This week, we have a special guest. We have Greg King, who is a photojournalist in Newmarket. This is going to be a great conversation.
Hi, I'm Greg. Photojournalist. Well, it's my latest gig. And that's actually the only thing that was left during the pandemic, since news is an essential service. So basically, I spent the pandemic chasing after ambulances, fire trucks, police cars.
I want to know more about that. I want to find out how you got into that, too, because I know you had a whole career before that. Before we do that, though, Greg, I'm just going to say a quick hello to Aurora and Mark. Catch the world up on what we've been up to for the quick week, and then we'll get right into the rest of our chat. Aurora, what are you up to, man? It's every time I see you, it feels like I haven't seen you in forever because I'm so used to seeing you every day, and now I just don't see you at all.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I feel the same way. I've actually had a fairly busy week, a lot of running around in preparation for two of my best friends getting married. They got married on Friday, so it was very, very exciting.
Very cool.
There's a lot of little preparations that I had to do or kind of help out with or offered to help out with as a bridesmaid for one of my friends. So, getting masks that are all color-coded in the same size and practicing a reading because I did a reading during the ceremony. And then in the previous weeks, I was making paper flowers to get the bouquets together and that kind of thing. So it was a busy week, but I'm so happy for George and Danny. So I was really happy to be a part of their day. And
what was it like being around so many people, though?
It was a little frightening in seeing so many people all at once. However, the way that this church was, it was such a big open space with really high roofs. The way that they had the seating all laid out was the only people of the same household could sit in a spot, and then that was 6 foot distance. So it wasn't like a traditional church with pews. They were
it was like groups of different bubbles.
Yeah, so that was actually really good. I was, of course, at the front with the rest of the bridal party. The only 2 people in the entire church that could have their mask off was the bride, except for when we were taking like a 2-second photo. So you go up, you take off your mask, you take the photo, and then you put your mask back on and then go back to your seat or wherever you were standing before. So there's that. And there was no food being served either. So it was a very interesting experience. I also ran the live stream for that day because, my friends knew that I do these, podcasts and live streams with Brian when I was over at the Newmarket store. And
I missed doing
it too. I haven't been doing them since.
You should do them through StreamYard, and you can do it from each store.
That is
you could just do it on Saturdays like we're doing this.
We'll talk. We'll get
to this. let's offline this. But yeah, it was a great week.
I'm glad you had a great week. Mark, man, what have you been up to?
Well, it's been a culinary exercise in my house in the last week. Our guest last week was a chef, and I have continued to experiment like crazy. My wife has not complained one bit. She's had all these wonderful meals. I've done ribs in the smoker. I did chicken wings last night. I've just continued to experiment, and Christina last week really inspired me. So that was awesome. So if you're watching this, watch last week's episode after you watch this conversation with Greg King, because it's going to be an amazing chat, I think.
For sure.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Well, let's start to get to that. Or no way, man. There's no such thing.
I have a camera in case it is.
If it's live, there's no such thing as a train wreck. You just go with it, and it'll all turn out good. Actually, we can edit this, so I guess we can edit out the train wreck if it happens. Damn right, I know. That's why we do it this way, Greg. We're not that dumb. I've done live shows before.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into our conversation, Greg. Before we do, though, I just want to remind people, if you are enjoying the Expressions podcast, please click like on our shows, subscribe to our channel. if we hit a certain number of subscribers, we're going to be able to change the name to our proper Expressions, the podcast YouTube page, instead of youtube.com/number this, that, whatever. So that would be great. And that would be awesome. So if you guys want to subscribe, please do. And if you don't, well, I hope you just enjoy the show, because we have a great time doing this. Greg, one of the things you were talking about was how you're now covering all the things. You're just chasing things around. But you had a whole life before you did all that.
Which life?
Like, I know when the first time I spoke with you at the store, you told me about your previous career and some of the things that you had done before you got into the photojournalism. Aurora and I mean, we knew you as a photographer, but there's so much more to it. So maybe you can give us like a brief synopsis of how it all started, where the passion started for cameras, and how you transitioned from your actual previous career into where you are today.
Well, I started photography in high school. So that was around 1973, 74. I know I pretty much spent the entire grade 12 in the darkroom. As long as I was on school property and I kept up my grades, the teachers were okay with it. So, and that's where I got into photography. And somehow I managed to I was really interested in photographing people. So if you go around the street and you start doing that, you get in a bit of trouble. So anyway, so what I started doing was photographing musicians, performers. You know, they're a bunch of raving egomaniacs anyways. So that's what started me doing existing light club photography. So that was during the 80s in Edmonton. I finally graduated university. After 14 years, 3 degrees, finally.
Wow.
Yeah. And came out here, Ontario, to work. Now, what I studied was kind of related. I was an analytical chemist, spectroscopist, basically analyzing chemicals using ultraviolet and visible light. So there you go, light. I built optics and things like that. So there was where the optics come in again. So I came out here, spent about 20 years for a company making analytical instrumentation. The company got taken over by an American equity fund. We started selling off divisions for cash to pay off their investors. I knew, it was not going to be a good ending. So I had a plan. Basically, I had to piss off my new American boss enough so he'll pay me to go away, but not cross the line into open insubordination, which gets you fired with cause.
Oh, geez. Look at the foresight on you.
So, well, it took 2 years. I was hoping he'd be out in 1.
Wow.
And then I got out, and 3 months later, the stock. Oh yeah, so I dumped my stock, and then 3 months later, it tanked. So bailed in time. And then started up photography full time. Most of my friends, all my friends who also got let go, combined their packages and formed up a competing company. As of 2 years ago, they retired. I'm still living below the poverty line.
Oh.
Yeah, no, it's I've been photographing performers since the 80s. I hang out with musicians, actors. So I knew poverty was involved. 20 years as an engineer paid off the house. So it's amazing how cheap you can live on if you don't have a mortgage.
It's true.
Yeah. So anyway, I decided to become a photographer, and I do all kinds of things. So there's no money in photographing performers, really, these days. So I do anything and everything. So I became versatile. And then back in 2018, a new paper formed up here in Newmarket. And since I had contacts, I've been photographing the local scene, events, politicians, everything, so I was known. So when the new newspaper formed up, again, it was staff from York Region Media Group, Metroland. So they already knew me. So I had an offer. Now I'm only freelance, so I'm, it's a gig. I'm not an employee. Now, okay, so it kind of just gets on to what I'm going to be talking about later. Yeah, because I find that works for me because as a creative, a photographer, freelance, I own the photos, not the paper. So I've resold them. Like if I photograph, Trudeau, which I have. Now that one, he has his own in the national, so there's no one really interested. But for some other people, I have, locally resold the photos. Plus, as I get into, sometimes on a job, I'll get some interesting photos, and it becomes a greeting card. So that's the good news is, it's a gig job, but but I have other gigs and stuff like that. I do all kinds of things these days because of the pandemic. Because pre-pandemic, I mean, weekends were brutal, because I do events, even for the paper. So and weekends are 16-hour days. Plus, and my corporate customers want me during the week.
So there's been a full year of pandemic now, year and a bit.
Yep.
How's that shift happened? How have you been able to continue? How have you been able to keep at it? Because there's no events, there's no things to shoot.
Yeah. So I'm continuing to shoot whatever there is for the paper. So I've been chasing fire engines, police cars, ambulances. 2 weeks ago, I chased an ambulance and found that some woman fell into the river with her 2 kids.
Oh, no.
Yeah, in a stroller. Fell in. I guess she wanted to show them the duckies. And it was really steep. They were okay.
Okay. I was just going to ask.
Yeah. There was a lot of crying. And the minute I heard the 2 little kids crying, I thought, okay, they're fine. If they're not crying, we worry. And so that was $8. Spot photo. Sometimes it's fires and things like that, so that'll be 20.
Okay, so explain what you mean by that. Is it level of importance? There's a different pay rate?
It's how many photos. So I don't know about the era, because they actually York Region Media Group, because they have their own photographer. Notice I use singular now.
Oh yeah.
They used to have 2 photographers for every town. Now they have 1 photographer for all of York Region. And basically the reporters are told, grab a photo with your cell phone.
Really? Okay, so it's not necessarily photography anymore. It's
some of them are pretty good. I met a few that are pretty good. But anyways, if I sell a spot photo, it's just a single photo, it's $8 a photo, maximum of 2. Anything more than that, it becomes a gallery, let's say, that goes with a story. The reporter writes a story, and I'll do a bunch of photos. That's $20. And then if it's a feature article, so the one beauty of Newmarket Today and Village Media is that they will do photo features. So the entire story is mine. So that's $50.
That's cool.
So so that's one thing I really like, as opposed to, York Region Media. They don't really do that, Anyways, so the first Eddie the Duck story was when I broke the story. Yeah. That was $50. The rest, the reporters went in and interviewed people. And so
Time out. Eddie the Duck. For those of you who don't know, Newmarket had a celebrity, I guess you could say, Mandarin duck that escaped from a local farm and ended up in Fairy Lake, which is the little lake and village or parquet, I guess, park in the middle of Newmarket. I go there all the time. I run my workshops from there. I do my steel wool, a bunch of different stuff there. And so this bird shows up and the world goes nuts. Nuts. And that's thanks to you.
Yeah, because I heard from the birders. Birders are crazy. I mean, when word gets out on social media that an unusual bird is seen somewhere, they literally flock, over. So I managed to catch it just
Nice
before. Yeah.
Yeah.
So everyone was asking me, "You here to photograph the duck?" No, I photographed the duck yesterday when there's no one around. Today, like there's 20 photographers, the serious wildlife. We're talking guys with 600 millimeter F4s, and they're like, this duck is tame. Half the time they couldn't shoot because it was too close. They were in the water. They lined the edge of the. So those are my shots, and yeah,
It's crazy.
They were in Fairy Lake.
Two of them were literally in. They had their tripods in the water.
I've been in that water wearing a full dry suit and and I wouldn't do it any other way. That's
Well, they weren't like underwater, but they had set up. They had wore waders.
The water.
Yeah.
I grew up in Newmarket.
Okay. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I wouldn't eat any fish caught out of there. I mean, God.
I went there actually. So I heard about this duck, and I was on a lunch break. Aurora, you remember this?
Yes.
And I figured I was on a lunch break. I would take 10 minutes and zip over there and have a look. So I get over there, and there was snow on the ground, and I saw the row. Like as soon as I'm walking in, somebody who knows me is like, "Hey, Brian, there's the duck just right over there past the bridge." So I go walk over, and there's the row of people, just exactly what you're saying. Yeah. The 600 mil lenses, the tripods, the big flashes hooked up to the top, the whole rigs, just like decked out to the nines, a whole row of people, but they were ways off. They were on the other side of the curve. So I figured, all right, this is a good time. I see Eddie. I got down low and I took a couple pictures, and all of a sudden he started swimming toward me. And I swear to God, I literally had enough time to jump up, put the camera close to my chest and duck like this. And I had a swarm of people with no masks. And this is right in the thick of things, right? No masks, not caring about anything, mobbing me, like brushing against me as they walk by. It literally gave me anxiety. I had nightmares about that. And it's actually traumatized me. And I know it sounds stupid for people like in the States that are hearing this, or wherever. But no, that was traumatic, and the people didn't even seem to care, and it was the most bizarre thing. And you're right, people go into a trance with these birds. I remember there was a bird in Schaumburg, an owl, and the exact same crew shows up, 40, 30 people with their cameras, and I mean, how do you avoid becoming paparazzi in this? I mean, you know what the word paparazzi originally comes from buzzing mosquitoes, literally what the definition of paparazzi is. Buzzing mosquitoes. And that's what the paparazzi was known as, the swarm of mosquitoes that followed celebrities around. So how do you avoid becoming that kind of a thing when you're a photojournalist? I mean, you're there to tell a story. You're there to do something that people need to know. It's a difference between some guy with more money than anything showing up with his gear and getting all whatever.
Well, I have a friend who did that, and he got lucky one time because he actually tried to keep away from the paparazzi. And I can't remember the star. This is down at TIFF, down in Toronto. And the guy, a celebrity, just ran. So turned around, ran. Actually, he has a picture of him running across the hood of a cab because he was on the other side of the street trying to stay away from paparazzi. Yeah, I can't remember which one it was. But yeah, it's insane. And I kind of do the same. So when Trudeau was in town on the election tour, so I was tasked with, photographing that. So eventually it was supposed to be a small private event for the local liberal faithful, 50 people. Ended up, we closed the street. It was just insane. National Press Corps follows him around. I think there was only 3-4 of us locally. And after he gave his speech in front of the restaurant, he went and crowd surfed. And basically, I'm staring at the back of him and same with all the other guys. And I said, screw it. I worked my way around. I actually end up in front of him so I could photograph his face and have him like showing him shaking hands with people and like that. So again, paparazzi, I mean, I've early on when I started becoming full-time photography, I did that. I tried doing that. There was a Hollywood movie here in town, and I spent 2 days? Yeah, 2 days stalking Daniel Craig. And I felt like scum. I hang out with musicians, actors, dancers. They're friends. They trust me. I will not publish an embarrassing photo of them. If I make a major sale, they're in for a cut because it's their image. They trust me. And sometimes they make me sign at a contract.
Well, I mean, that goes part and parcel. I mean, they made you sign it once. You learn that's what they appreciate. So that's the way you are from there forward.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So, I try to tackle it as, unlike a paparazzi who's trying to get embarrassing photos, I am trying to make them look good, even in a more natural setting rather than on stage. So I have backstage privileges. I have, So
makes a difference.
So that's part of the things I do. So the photojournalism is what kept me going during COVID, because that's the only thing that's allowed. But
it's your integrity that keeps you going.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what got me out of the job.
That's awesome.
That's
Up here behind me, there's a plaque on my wall, the Barrie Wrestling Hall of Fame. I am not a wrestler, and I'm in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. And it's, to me, the coolest thing possible, because these guys see me the same way. Like I've had moments where you take pictures. It's the photographer that shows the story. Yeah. And when you have a wrestler that's in the wrong position, wrestling specifically, it could be very awkward. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. Wrestling with men, whatever. It could get awkward if you show the wrong image. There's been many images of women that I've shot that were extremely inappropriate with clothes too tight that I just won't share. Yeah. There are wrestlers that are in the bigs right now that I've got photos with their full butt showing because their pants were pulled down that I've never shared and will never share. I deleted it. Why do I keep it? But that's the integrity, and that makes all the difference in the world. And I think that's another thing about being a photojournalist is you can't alter your image, can you?
You're right. So now, as an artist, because I also do fine art, sometimes I feel that I need to do something to it. So what happens then is on the caption, I say photo illustration. That's because I high pass filtered it and done something, crazy to enhance the image. I quite often do that with construction photos because it makes it look more insane. I don't think Metrolink likes me because when they did the construction here, I made it look so bad, like so congested.
Well, it did look bad though.
yeah, but I made it look worse.
Yeah,
300 millimeter lens. I could compress everything from Leslie to Young in the shot, so you can see at 5 o'clock rush hour. You could like normally traffic's in gaps, right? Because of the street lights. Well, the compression eliminated the gaps, and then I did high pass filtering to show like the Anyways, it ended up Chief Jolliffe wanted a copy of the photo because he was asking for more money for traffic.
You did that on purpose too, didn't you?
Yeah. And so I tell people, it's not like adding extra flames, to a fire or anything like that. That's Though I did do that on a job. They wanted an explosion. This was a demolition job for a company that does demolitions, and I caught a picture of the owner walking across the site, totally oblivious. Cigarette dangling from his mouth, which he's not supposed to have, on site, and his eyes are just on his BlackBerry, and it was a crazy, dangerous sight. And so for a Christmas present, they wanted me to Photoshop an explosion behind him. So I did.
Oh my God! But that's for a Christmas present. That's not published in the paper.
Yeah,
I think Aurora's battery just died.
No, it didn't. There's something weird that went on here.
See,
the camera turned off and I didn't even touch anything.
The beauties of live stream. I just spent the last month working with York Pride. They hired me to photograph in the studio while they were live streaming. So the cameras were going off. We were losing microphones. 3 of the shows they ended up posting something, apologizing, and then saying, "We're shooting to record. We'll post it later."
Wow.
Yeah, And that's another reason I wanted to do this show pre-recorded. We
Yeah.
built up a bank. Actually, it was Aurora's good idea to build up a bank of episodes and have a few of them already ready in case something happened, if we had to miss a show or it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yep,
And that's another thing I've also been doing during the pandemic. Okay, so let's finish off the photojournalism. Yeah, so that's news is an essential service. I've been going around whatever news there was, if there was a protest or
protests. What kind of protests were there? What is there to protest in this day and age?
Pineapple on pizza.
Well, it's really sad.
I was gonna say, I'm like pineapple on pizza.
The amount of violence in the hospitals. I mean, people are hurting, and some of them, like a lot of them, have mental health issues. Okay, so I live in the Main Street area. Okay, it's right by South Lake, and South Lake actually this makes no difference. South Lake serves the entire area. There are a lot of group homes, people with mental health issues, and they have not been getting their treatment because of the pandemic. And so if they show up at the hospital, they're off their meds and they've been assaulting nurses. I have friends who are emerge nurses, and they're being assaulted, violent patients. So there was a protest about that. There was also the protest because the government promised more money, pay, for frontline workers and didn't deliver. So the nurses held a protest. So there I am, and which leads to a funny situation here because I'm friends with a lot of people at South Lake. So, but if I show up with a press badge around my neck, security is called, and they escort me off the property.
Wow!
And then I'll meet them later that day in a bar. We have drinks. But if I show up on site with a press badge and a camera,
well, they're doing their job, right?
Yeah. And they're doing their job. It's what management, so
it's a tight spot for management to be in for a situation like that. But you're just there to cover the facts. You're not trying to embellish or
no. But they want to put their spin on the facts too. So therefore, So I'm kind of jealous. All during the pandemic, the Star managed to get permission to go into places like St. Michael's and stuff to cover in like the emergency in the ICUs. I've never had. I would really have loved to do that. As a journalist, here at South Lake, but nope, not allowed.
Yeah. I mean, one thing has been kind of a curious thing to me since you mentioned the accident with the mother and the two children. I'm sure as a photojournalist, you've seen some like pretty, different things, maybe scary or been in situations maybe potentially of danger and that kind of thing. Could you maybe either tell us a story or even just like
quiet town? I'm not usually afraid of anything.
What about the bear? You had a bear.
The bear was drugged by the time he was charging me. He was staggering. But I just so a few weeks ago, a bear was wandered into town. It wandered into an industrial zone. Now this is weird, because this lot was vacant for so long. There were trees growing on it. They had cleared the lot, put up a berm with all the topsoil. There's a 12-foot trees growing on top of that lot. Anyways, so the bear got there, so it's pretty safe. It's an industrial zone. The police set up a perimeter. They had rifles. So part of it was I was there. We were waiting for, ministry was already there. And I learned something. The ministry, everyone says, well, why don't they shoot it with a tranquilizer? Because a few years ago, a bear was shot and killed. It wandered in, ended up Fairy Lake in someone's backyard up a tree. The police do not have dart guns. So it's up to the ministry. Now, I found out the ministry doesn't have dart guns either. It's been outsourced. We had to wait 2 hours for a veterinarian from an animal rescue over in Caledon to show up. Wow. So I spent Saturday afternoon with the cops. originally I was scheduled to photograph at a vaccine clinic. Now, South Lake was running it, so I knew exactly what. So I basically called up my editor and says, okay, South Lake's running it. They're not going to let me do what I want to do anyways. So you've got a reporter assigned. Just have her use her cell phone. Because it'll be
there you go.
That's all South Lake will allow is posed shots. And they will not allow a wide shot. I was told that.
Interesting.
A wide angle lens. You know? They claim that it's privacy. Anyways. So I made the arrangements. I spent the day with them. So basically, I photographed the police waiting around. I photographed them with their rifles. I haven't gotten around to teasing the chief yet because the York Regional. Okay, so the police cars in the back in a locked case is usually a rifle and a shotgun. So the rifle is an assault rifle. It's I can't remember the model number, but it's an assault rifle. To be honest, I grew up out west hunting bears too. No, I didn't hunt bears.
Bless you.
Thank you.
That assault rifle fires a pretty small bullet. If it was a big bear, you're just going to make it angry.
Oh, no. They'd have to mow it down for it to...
Yeah.
That
But anyways, so I actually had, the police, the bear, the rifles, showing the perimeter, showing the ministry person. She was brave. She had to go in there and find the bear because she had to get a photo of it, determine its size, so when the vet showed up, she could tell, in this case it was a she, tell the vet the size of the bear so that the vet can actually, so this kind of all makes sense, make up the appropriate dosage of tranquilizer.
Oh.
And so I have photos of the vet arriving. I have photos of the vet's weapons master showing the ministry person how to use this particular gun. It's like a CO2 gun, like a paintball gun.
Right.
And they all trooped in, and the police were really not. The one constable was great. He actually told me because he was on the radio and he was getting updates, and so basically says, okay, he's going to come, basically run straight towards me. He cleared everyone else away, just left me there because he said he figured I knew what I was doing.
Nope, you're safe. You've got a camera. You're fine.
Yeah.
Oh,
just hold the camera there.
I had it's a different kind of shooting.
100 to 400L.
Okay, you're
big
a
lens.
ways away.
Okay.
And it was it's a small bear. I could beat it.
Oh.
And it comes staggering out. Unfortunately, it was a small bear and there was lots of grass. So I could not see the bear. I had the autofocus set for tracking. Mistake. So lots of nice, sharp photos of grass.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
The blurry. The only way was to wait for the bear to get within 10 meters of me, clear the grass, and I figured, nah, the cop's been really nice to me. This would freak him out because he was staggering. I could see this freaking huge red dart sticking out his ass.
Yeah, that's the front page photo right there. The red dart out of the bear's ass.
Yeah. But so I never did get a decent shot of the bear until he was like passed out because I decided to clear out, keep the cops cool. I have to work with these people,
right?
They're all the time out in the streets. So I'm friends with quite a number of police. So yeah, and so, but I wasn't really because it was not a big bear. Okay, it's the size of a Bouvier, which is still a pretty big animal. It's 100 pounds.
Was it a black bear or brown bear?
Yeah, little black bear.
Black bear.
Little black bear.
Wouldn't have been a brown bear.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't have been a brown bear.
Yeah. They're fun when they're intoxicated. We had in my yard. There's an apple tree down the back, and there was a black bear eating fermented apples. Off
fermented apples in your trunk.
So I was at this was last summer before we had a fence. So I was walking the dogs and spotted the bear and did what every sane person would do. I got out of there and got the dogs in the house and I grabbed the camera and went back.
You smart. Get the dogs in the house. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get pictures of the drunk bear. So that was fun.
And so I documented everything, had them like the pictures of the vet mixing up the dart, showing the ministry person how to use the weapon. They brought it out, they resuscitated it, and whole treatment process. So basically that's a story.
Yeah. So now, do you, when a story like that unfolds, you took all the pictures, do you also write the story that goes with it and then send that in?
Okay. So I basically write up everything. I take notes. Sometimes they'll turn that into a story and put my name on it. Other times they won't put my name on it. So that determines the difference between $20 and $50. In the past, when we were short on reporters, I've actually sold 4 stories. Not news. It's cricket, local kids cricket and things like that. So soft stuff, fluffy stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't write the hard news. But I submit all the information. One time, I interviewed the MP. I actually recorded it because I knew my editor wanted to write the story, but she couldn't make it. Right. So I carry a voice recorder with me. I actually recorded the interview. I interviewed him, recorded it, and then emailed her the MP3.
Okay, cool.
So with files from Greg King, So yeah. So it's and yes, I write the captions. She edits them though, so sometimes it's a good thing. Yeah. A few years ago at a craft festival, one guy was making stuff out of gourds, and he was also selling the raw gourds for people who want to make their own. And the gourds are sold by the inch. So my caption for that was "Size matters."
Oh, geez.
That got cut.
It's funny. I always make sure before I post anything to Facebook or that I'm on the fence about, I always show Shelley. I have to get a second approval before I post it. Oh, yeah. Sometimes my humor just doesn't quite translate.
But she let me get away with the one Christmas parade photo outside the old village pub. They had a sign there were, free hot chocolate. And it was the chalkboard. And the chalkboard, pubs, right? It's advertising, right? So they get the chocolate. And this one was Jameson's, whiskey. So my caption for that: hot chocolate's free, you have to pay for the whiskey. And she kept that.
No, that's clever. That's good.
One of the things you said about the images and all the stories, I guess, that you write, you own all that stuff.
Yeah.
So first off, how do you sell that stuff? And secondly, do you find yourself drawn to these stories out of curiosity and the passion of photography, or because it's now your job and you have to do it?
Sometimes, okay. This is not all exciting. We've been talking about some interesting things. In a normal year, pre-COVID, a lot of my job was going around because Vince's is donating $5,000 to South Lake, and it's a check pass. Boring, So, yeah.
So
a
it's
lot
not
of
just
that. Sorry, itchy nose. And on Canada Day, there was a prayer vigil, total last minute affair, for the residential school kids. That's a passion of mine, is social justice. And so that was more, A, I was assigned it, but B, I'm definitely doing it. Kind of thing. And so sometimes the organizations want their own copies so I can sell it to them. Same thing with the bands and some of the people, they want copies. So, yeah.
Okay. It's not like there was a show on TV a while back where there were news reporters that would go around and hunt for the story, and then they have to sell it to how many different stations they can sell it to. And that's not how it works for you.
Actually, no. Yeah, it is kind of, except I don't hunt around all the stations. For instance, I know Metroland won't. The only pictures I've ever had published in the Era banner were given to them free because I was shooting for the politician, and they submitted my photo with their press release because Metroland didn't send anybody. So that's the only way I got a byline out of it, was because the politician actually paid me. And but basically, yes, I go around like that woman that fell in the river. I happen to see it. I sent it in. My editor took it, and bingo. Or last Sunday, I caught some dancers from a dance school. Of course, dance studios are still closed, right? Mm-hmm. So this is their competitive team. They need to rehearse. So they were rehearsing on the stage at Riverwalk. I got pictures out of that. I sent them in totally on spec. Sometimes she buys them, prints them. So I keep track. If she prints them, basically it's sold. Because sometimes she doesn't answer my emails. Right now I'm waiting for my beaver shots to show up.
Wait. Hang on a second. We're going to have to hashtag this episode beaver shots.
There's a family of beavers living in Fairy Lake.
Oh, is there? Okay.
So another thing that I've been doing during the spring was nature photography. It started with the duck, right? So, okay, some people, my editor said, oh yeah, people are interested in some nature. Okay. So, went and staked out their lodge. I won't tell people where it is because I don't want people harassing them. So now she says she'll print them. So that's been like 3 weeks now.
Oh, so that hasn't been printed yet?
Yeah, no.
Oh, interesting. So, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's not new, so it can be printed at any time.
For space. Waiting for a good spot to put it. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm not too excited. I mean, if she does it, it'll be great. It's $50, and if she doesn't, I mean, it's not the end of the world. I could probably sell those pictures. I'm more happy that I got the Canada Day and the vigil, because that's something I'm passionate about. The vigil. So I really want to do that
as well. That's something I'm working pretty hard on, is to get a guest on the show that can talk about the whole situation and in a really respectful way. I mean, we want to make sure it's atrocious. It's absolutely
I've always worked with the local Indigenous community, so I've contacts with all the other communities. The only community I don't have a contact with is surprise, the Chinese community.
Why would that be a surprise, Greg?
I was born here.
Yeah, I'm not a member of the tribe either, and I probably should have been one day.
Yeah. So
you mentioned how South Lake gives a little bit of pressure. They have their own way of doing things. Yeah. I would imagine, since you shoot so many politicians, you'd have had an experience with a politician, maybe trying to sway a story, trying to bury something. I don't need names. I mean, this is an employer-friendly show.
They always So when I'm shooting for them, I try to make them look good. If I'm not shooting for them, let's say the paper has sent me out, I'm always kind of cognizant that I can resell to them, so I do try to get good pictures. But if I'm not shooting for them, I don't have to go that extra step to make them look good. Mm-hmm. And again, there's certain politicians that we like in the photography world, that all the other photographers we like doing. Mitzi Hunter is one. She looks great on camera. But some of these guys, it's really tough job.
Just to make them look good, you mean?
No, she naturally looks good. So she really. Anyways, the worst.
As opposed to Rob Ford,
the worst experience I've had was Stephen Harper. Despite the fact that me and I can't remember who was sent over from the era. Actually, wasn't anybody sent over from the era? Anyways, I think I was the only local. The rest were all national, following him around. Even though they're the same guys that follow him around, we were all locked in a room for 2 hours before he showed up. The RCMP had us quarantined. And then just before he showed up, they brought the dog in to sniff all our gear.
Well, people didn't necessarily like him, though, so that's almost understandable. I mean,
it's kind of weird. So I photographed him, and all this crazy. Well, I mean, damn, and that was crazy, and then now fast forward with Trudeau, and he crowd surfs. Like there was, one time I was at an event. In this case, I was a guest. Chinese New Year's, Markham. you know, and it was hilarious because I look around. This is Chinese New Year's in Markham. So if I look around the crowd, you just look for a tall white guy in a suit. That's security. York Regional Police at least sent 2 Chinese constables, uniformed constables, to stand at the door. The tactical squad was on the roof. I found out afterwards.
Geez.
I was parked right next to them because it was after dark now, and the light comes through the windows. When I showed up, it was still light.
Yeah,
it's parked right next to their truck.
At least you knew you were safe.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just it's a kind of a different with the conservatives. It's more adversarial. That's the feeling I get. I've worked for all the major parties, except the NDP. They can't afford me. And I actually said that in front of them, and they said, "You're right, Greg. We can't afford you, but if you're willing to give it to us,
if you're willing to give it,
nothing's free. Nothing's free when it's your livelihood."
Yeah. So,
that's good.
So the only pressure I've got was South Lake. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the only pressure I really got was South Lake.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of some shady dealings in Newmarket government and, brown bag things. And I was hoping for maybe a story like, oh, yeah, I got that one time where John Taylor met somebody in the back alley.
I mean, it's all BS. Okay, people are always down on lawyers, politicians. I know lawyers. I know politicians. Yeah, there's some bad ones. But they all get in it with the best of intentions. Okay, not all, but a lot of them go in with the best of intentions, and it's not like that.
Right.
So people always talk about stuff they don't know about. I'm friends with I know people, everything. I know people from everyone from the homeless. Thank God this guy's got a home now, and he's no longer bugging me.
Oh, gee.
Well, he thinks he's got the solution to the homelessness. He made himself the self-appointed spokesperson for the homeless in Newmarket. I cannot talk to any homeless person without going through him, or else he gets upset. I say, screw you, buddy. I helped that guy. I took his picture. We did the story on him. We got him out off the street. Okay. You've got serious issues. You think you can buy the hotel? Oh yeah, he was running a GoFundMe to buy the Howard Johnson in Aurora.
Interesting.
Yeah, he has his own mental health issues. I find most of the homeless have mental health issues. A few of them don't. A few of them are just down and out. And I want to do a story on one guy because he's okay now. He got placed. From the cold. Ended up temping for a company in town. This is a really good company. You temp for them for 3 months. You work out. They hire you full time.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
okay.
There's just one company.
Yeah.
They received $1 million from the Conservative government back when Harper was there to expand their facilities in Newmarket. They did. Back then they had one plant. Now they have 3 here in Newmarket.
Cool.
So I want to do a story on them. So unfortunately the pandemic is this is year 2 now. So so it's kind of put a lot of stuff that I want to do on hold.
That's great though. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. So I meet a lot of these, people on the street. Like the only people I'm afraid of are some of these street people who, if they're off their meds.
It's a serious issue. It sucks that there's so many people out there who are down on their luck and they can't afford to get their meds, because keeping up with your meds, if you don't have a whole lot of money to work with, and you need it. Like for a lot of these people, they need it. Right? It's a chemical imbalance, right?
Yeah.
And I just know from experience, because I have a relative who has bipolar, and it is a chemical imbalance, and the medication is so expensive. So I feel for these people who are, put out of a home, put out of a place to stay as a result of, just not being able to pay for their medication,
they need to have,
things that they need to have to function, right?
Yeah. Some are like, go on.
I was just going to say, like, one of the things that Aurora and I have done, and I know Mark does this as well with shoppers, is we try and advocate for mental health awareness as much as we can. We've made the Henry's Foundation for Mental Health a big part of what we do in the show. because they give to CAMH, Kids Help Phone, Jack.org, and a lot of other places. Do you see any of these folks that you've encountered on homeless right now? Do you see those people getting any help from these sources?
I watched one time when one of them walked, a young fella new to town, came into the coffee shop, and there happened to be a social worker in the coffee shop. And so she tried talking to him, trying to get it. So some of them, it's really sad because it's money. But there's others who feel that they don't need it, they don't want it, they don't,
Well, we have Leah Denbach coming on our show as a guest.
Okay.
She's a photographer who's photographed a lot. Do you know of her work?
I photographed Leah.
Oh, really? Excellent. Well, she's going to be a guest on our show coming up. So I think we'll save those questions for her.
Yeah.
It was really interesting talking to you about your photojournalism. And we have a couple other questions for you, though, before we say goodbye to you tonight. We have 3 questions. One you've already answered, so we're going to let you answer this one first. I asked you earlier if you could give a challenge to our listeners or our viewers. It could be anything. Initially, you gave me a photo challenge, which is kind of my gut instinct to do as well. Yeah. But when I mentioned to you that it doesn't have to be photo related, it could be anything, you came up with something else. Do you remember what that was?
Yes. Get paid for your work.
Elaborate.
Everyone, you always give it away, and a lot of places take advantage of it. Years ago, I was volunteering for the Edmonton Jazz Festival, and so I was taking pictures when I wasn't stage managing, and then a local paper, the Edmonton equivalent of Now magazine, called up, and they wanted photos. Could not afford to pay me. They said, "Think of the exposure, Greg." And my reply, this was on a weekend, my reply was, if I wanted exposure, I'd call the Sun, have them send a photographer at the corner of Jasper and 97th, which is like the equivalent of Yonge and Bloor, at noon on Monday. I would show up on the corner and drop my pants. That's exposure.
Doesn't make you much money doing that, but
Not at all.
Yeah. So a lot of places try and take advantage of young photographers. Now,
I happen to see this from the other side as well.
Yeah.
And this is coming from my wrestling world.
Yeah.
It has given me more in experience and understanding of how to use Flash and how to deal with people and how to, pay attention to crowds and keep both eyes open when I shoot. Like, I've learned so much from shooting that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I don't charge for doing that.
Okay.
Now, I have only worked with 2, maybe 3 different people in my entire world. So it's not like I'm going around taking business from other photographers that want to make money from it. But I've caught flack for doing that, and I understand why. And I totally respect the challenge. And I think it's important that people know that you have value. Your work has value, and you have to make sure you get that value, or else you devalue yourself and you can never recover from that.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with it. But I do have to say that there's a lot to be said for just doing stuff that you love to do. Yeah. I love doing it, so I learn a lot from doing it. But there is a fine line there, and I just don't know what that is.
It depends who you're photographing. For instance, you mentioned wrestling. Years ago, I was photographing some women's wrestling in Parkdale. So basically, it was being done for free. I actually still had a day job back then. So, yes, I understand about the crowds and all that. And I was getting creative. I actually would be all the other photographers at ringside. I'm actually at the back. I have shots of the whole ring. Mm-hmm. And one night with the fog machines and everything, it looked like, if it's printed in black and white, it looked like Madison Square Gardens, like the whole thing. Oh, cool. And also because it was women, and it was more a show than real wrestling.
It's entertainment.
But it's physical. Okay. So I would use slow shutter speeds. Kept the arms, hair blurring as it just whips around. But you're right
Awesome.
about the crowds too, because one night I was beside this one woman and she was screaming, "Kill her! Kill her! Kill them!"
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They get right into it.
Calm down.
That must have been Shelly. I think she
Show.
was at that show. Yeah, my wife.
Yeah. So
That's how she
I mean,
watches
yeah,
wrestling.
I still do. I mean, I just sold some photos to a local band for just $20 because it was not my best work because I had to keep out of the video camera angles, and so I wasn't. Anyways. It just depends. If I'm shooting for someone I know or an organization I know has money, I want to be paid. Okay.
Fair enough. Awesome.
So that's why I stopped shooting for Opera York. I did it for 15 years. Now I'm doing it for money, and yeah, I think you can afford to pay me at least an honorarium. I shoot the annual Maple Blues Awards. They pay me. I mean, it's not a lot of money. $200 for a night, but hey, and supporting the Canadian performer artists. So
Yeah.
And working for yourself, you can make that call.
yeah, I make that call. Yeah.
Sorry,
Absolutely.
Aurora.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said. Like, I've definitely volunteered to shoot for certain things before, as like a free thing or like a gift to a friend or something like that.
Yeah.
But as soon as you start giving away your shooting and giving away your time as like a photographer or any artist, really, Brian is totally right. You kind of devalue yourself. So I think
can't recover from that.
really the main lesson out of getting paid for your art, getting paid for your work is to believe that your work has value and try to sell it. I actually have a relative, my aunt, and she stopped her full-time job in accounting, and she kind of went on a mental health journey and a bunch of different stuff, and now she makes money selling art in her community, right? And I think she never really had that kind of value to her work, the value to her music performance and her poetry and art making and jewelry making before. But when she started selling it, she's making a living off of it. It might not be as much as she was making before, but she's loving what she does and she's making something out of it. So.
And I'm sure once she started selling her work, she started gaining that self-worth. It's like, oh yeah, people are actually seeing me this way. That's important.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think it's important to differentiate too between something that you shoot because you want to shoot it, like Brian, you do with the wrestling because you love the wrestling and you do it to build your skills and you shoot for yourself. But there's also, like I did when I lived in Southern Ontario, I did charity golf tournaments for Shoppers Drug Mart. Right? We do a lot of in non-COVID times. It was 2 or 3 a year, and I always shot them. For whichever district manager it was that was hosting it, I shot it for them. But I got a free day on the links. They normally sometimes I played, sometimes I didn't. Most often I just shot, but then I got the meals and things like that as well. So it was all for the charity. So that's why I did that.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed it. They were great days. A lot of times my wife would join me. We're making groups of golfers do fun things. So it was a lot of fun. And then for that, if I wasn't there, they're not going to pay somebody to do that. That was just another way for them to get the money. So, Brian, for you, the wrestling, like if you didn't show up, are they going to start? Are they just going to hire a photographer and put that person in there? Probably not, right? They're not going to do that. They're not going to spend the money on it. So you're not taking a livelihood from a paid photographer.
Not in these cases, no.
No, but then where it crosses the line is when somebody sees your work and goes, "Oh wow, you're fantastic! Can you come, shoot my wedding?" or shoot my son's graduation or whatever, and they want you to do that for free because, well, you did the charity golf tournament, so you can do that for me. And it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
It's something I've chosen to donate my
That's
time
right.
to this cause or to this organization, or in Brian's case, to learn and to grow your craft.
Even the same
completely different.
Is true when I shot the Vaughan Film Festival. I did that for 5 or 6 years. It took a break for a year or two in the middle. But when I finally, just recently, the people that run the Vaughan Film Festival, one of them ousted the other one in a really,
interesting,
really bad way. Like just, I found out about it, and I told Mark, the other guy. So I was like, "Hey, did you know this happened?" He's like, "Wow, you're not supposed to know that yet. Like, what is going on?" And so anyway, long story short, I basically didn't want to deal with them anymore because of that. It was like, that's not cool. You're treating your friend since high school this way. I don't want to volunteer for something like that. And as somebody who I shoot for me, I do my own thing. Like you, Greg, you're a freelance. We have the right to decide who we want to work for or not work for. And I think that's a very powerful thing too. But yeah, get paid. Do it. And that's where I've twisted. I've not, I shoot for me is my excuse for not getting paid. Really. It's my way to say, I make my money from Henry's. I make my money from Day Tripper eventually, maybe, because it hasn't gone for a year and a half. But yeah, that's where I'll focus. But Greg, man, I can't appreciate you being here enough. We still have 2 more questions for you, though.
Okay.
Second question is, what's your jam? Is there a song that you listen to? Is there a song that you listen to and you're like, oh man, that's my jam, or it just gets you working better, or it's just a song out there that you just listen to every time and you have to hear it all the way through? Or you're not a big music guy?
I listen to a lot of music. I was just actually thinking about this the other day because the CBC was playing an old concert, Katie Lang concert, and this is where I disagree with a lot of people. One of my absolute favorite songs is Cohen's Hallelujah, but I don't like KD's version.
Okay.
I'm a traditionalist. I go for Jeff Buckley's or some of my other friends, like the I'm trying to remember Winnipeg, the Waylon Jennings, or some of the others. Yeah, but I just find it overproduced. No, I don't get me wrong.
Nice, clean, pure, original.
I like simple. Mostly like simple, but again, I mean, it depends on the music. I'm friends with George St. Kitts, so all the Motown stuff. I love the horn section. So the other day, it was afternoon jazz. Yeah, we can have music again.
Yes.
And they sang Mustang Sally.
Nice.
Oh, did you freeze?
I think you froze.
If you're gonna freeze right after you say Mustang
Sally. I mean, that's like an exit right there.
Sorry, my router crapped out.
Oh no, we figured it was something like that.
I'm surprised it lasted an hour without crapping.
Okay,
but yeah. So, anyways, Brian and Aurora, that's how they put the caramel in the caramel bar. So
you missed it, Greg. You missed it.
I already know.
Okay.
All right, you finished that Mustang Sally.
Yeah, and so he put in a horn section. So I mean that kind of soul music, rhythm and blues. I love more orchestration. So it depends on the song, but yeah, one of my absolute favorites is Cohen's Hallelujah. I like that one clean.
Good
Very
choice.
Cool. Very cool.
Okay, last question of the night, and this can be anything. One of the things as photographers, you always see videos of people like, "What's in my bag?" Everybody's showing off their stuff. I think it's more important to find out what skill or what thing you use day to day. What tool of the trade would you think is something that everybody in your trade should have or do or use or utilize?
Oh boy.
What tool of the trade is something that's super important?
Basically, your brain. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I have lenses going all the way from 8mm to, fisheye to 400mm telephoto. And depending on the gig, I sometimes have preconceived notions of what I want to do and what I want to bring. But the idea is being able to see something and have an idea rather than just snapping a photo. So you guys sometimes so what happened yesterday during this is a couple walking past started dancing. Well, first thing I did was I did snap a photo of them dancing. Then I moved and I wanted to get the singer in the shot too. So what they're dancing to. So So I grabbed the first shot. And again, it's something I learned in the journal. Just grab something at first, and you may delete it later, but
get your money shot, and then work
get
the
something.
scene.
So and then work it. Yeah. So take time, look, think. Compose. In this case, I couldn't get far enough back because I wanted, so I didn't equalize the perspective. So the singer and the dancer, because the singer is a lot closer to me, so they're image size. So, but basically, I tell people to just sit down and look. And also, another thing you have to learn is the human eye sees differently than cameras, or camera sees differently from the human eye. We see in 3D. Cameras are 2D. So basically, it's my brain.
Perfect. I totally understand it.
Yeah.
Great answer.
As soon as you said that, I thought about the picture you said you took of Davis Drive from Young Street to Leslie.
Oh, that was planned.
Yeah, and that because you thought about it and you went, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that. So
yeah,
and that's the difference between a photographer and somebody who shows up to shoot something with a cell phone. You show up with a cell phone, you have the tiny sensor, you have one lens, maybe you can zoom in digitally. You can be creative with
you can be creative with a cell phone. It's just you're more limited. But again, you have to use your brain now. You gotta just know the limitations of the cell phone, and So when someone hands me their cell phone to take their cell phone, happens less. Well, it's probably start happening more again when now COVID's over and people are let me touch their phone. That's the first thing I say. Are you okay with me touching your phone?
I'd be like, I'm not okay with touching your phone.
Yeah. Well, I lived life pretty dangerously. So, like I said, with the bear and all that, I should have been dead 10
you are
years
a rebel.
ago. I do take chances.
Well, you have to. You have to, especially in that line of work.
But anyways, but you still got to learn to think. So even with a cell phone, learn to think, and you're limited. Your depth of field is immense. So new phones are different. They're using software now to try and get some image blur in and things like that. But yeah, it's learn to live with its limitations. So if you get on your cell phone, I will reposition you, especially in restaurants, right? Okay, stand there. I need light on your face, right? Kind of thing. And okay, pose there, and then also to get light on their face, I'll also shoot from hold the cell phone up over my head. Yeah.
Think.
Yeah, I think that's a really great piece of advice. Specifically for photojournalism work or anything that you want to be telling a story with, because if you don't, like oftentimes in the case of people taking pictures with their cell phone or just whatever camera that they have on there, really quick, it's a quick snap.
Yeah.
This piece of advice to actually think it out and see what else is there to interact with the other pieces of the puzzle, to create a story, to create a whole picture.
Yeah.
It shows a lot more than words. If you're just isolating the one subject, you may not get the full story out of the picture. So I think this is an awesome piece of advice, and I feel like this could be applied to in many different fields of creativity as well, like art making and music. Think about the bigger picture.
Home
so
building.
You can build your story.
Anything.
Everything. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. One of the things though about thinking is you need a little bit of experience sometimes to get that. I know for myself, a trip to Algonquin Park, we see a moose in the bush. Everybody's first instinct is to just get the shot, just go click, 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 click. Nobody's stopping to think about, is there a cool tree in the way that you can work with, or if I shoot from a lower perspective, it'll look bigger, or one of those things. So, I mean, it's certainly a great tip to give, is just to look beyond what's right in front of you, turn around and look what's behind you, pay attention to the environment you're in, and try and compose something that somebody else hasn't done.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Greg before we say goodbye, guys?
No, I'm great. I really enjoy. I didn't say much, but I really enjoyed your stories. I really enjoyed your stories, Greg.
Oh man, 40 some odd years. I have tons of them.
We'll bring you on
So I can't tell jokes, but I don't tell jokes, but I have funny stories. I have so much in my life,
One time when COVID is a distant memory, and I'm down there, we'll get together for a coffee. Because
Awesome.
Okay, great.
All right. Greg, you don't need to disappear right away. I'm just going to stop the broadcast and then we'll say our goodbyes. But thank you, everybody who has watched and listened so far tonight to the Expressions Podcast, episode number 16. And I'm glad Aurora has that on her board behind her there because that's how I remembered. If anybody wants to get in touch with us, please feel free to do so. expressionsthepodcast@gmail.com. And definitely keep in touch with all the things we're doing. We've got some great guests coming up. We've had some great shows already, and it's just going to get better from here. That's it for us. Everybody, take care. We'll see you soon.
Good night.
Back in.
So he left.
Okay.
Now I'm all alone on the bottom row. Look at all the elbow room I have now.